Oh,
Is there any numbers on there that we should really
like specific numbers on here? No.
Okay.
Just really having a general idea how, it went down. I really don't have a ton of questions really on the test over, just broad questions. Yeah, and then, what the name of the operations are and stuff like that. But yeah, really I'm just trying to tell you kind of a cool story about, such an impactful event, And actually, I got quite a bit to expand in on this. So we talked about, the huge buildup. Earlier on, when we were talking about the Battle of Britain, we talked about how the importance of the survival of Britain, so that once we got in the war, we would be able to launch, a liberation of Europe. And so by the time June 6th rolls around, guys, we have 3 million troops on the island of Britain, okay, from every continent on the planet, okay, and most of those troops are going to be Americans, but you have South Africans, you have New Zealanders, you have Australians, you have Canadians, you have Americans, and of those 3 million, about 2 million of them are American GIs. Now, do you know what GI stands for? We've all heard of GI Joe before.
I don't have a guess. I have a question.
Okay.
Really quick.
Go.
When it says 3 million, is that talking about groups of people or individuals?
Allied force of soldiers.
So like 3 million individuals.
Soldiers, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, GI stands, yeah. Good guess. It's actually government issue. So when you sign the dotted line and join the United States military, the government owns you. Okay. So this is government issue. Okay. All the soldiers are government issue. Okay. Now, with 2 million Americans being in Britain, okay, we also have all the supplies, all the planes, all the trucks, all the tanks, all the ammunition, all the fuel, all the medicine, all the supplies necessary for such a huge force. Okay, Eisenhower kind of quipped at the time. He said, it's only the huge number of barrage balloons floating in the sky above the island that kept it from sinking into the sea. Because of all of them. Thank you.
What?
Laughing at how bad it was, then.
No.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe I should drop that. Anyhow, guys. Now, I forget. Any of you guys been to Europe? Okay. How do they kind of view the typical American over there? Fat, lazy, loud. That was quick. Big. Obnoxious.
They really don't like it.
They kind of perceive us as cocky. Yeah, like we're Americans, like, America, right? How many guys are chewing gum right now? I got one. Go ahead. It's legal now. Back when it was illegal to chew gum in school. Oh, you used to not.
Well, like it was a rule.
Yeah, it's a demerit.
Oh.
Yeah. There used to be a lot more gum chewing going on when it was against the rules. Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's just one way to stick it to the man, right?
Yep.
See what you can get away with. Yeah, back then, I guess a lot of Americans chewed gum. Okay. And so, look, I wrote a paper on this. Like the impact of 2 million GIs on British society during the build-up to D-Day. Okay. Now, here's one of the major factors, is that the British women are going to take a liking to the American GI. which is not going to bode well for a relationship with the British soldiers. You understand? So like they perceive these Americans as taking the girls. Okay. Now my first year teaching here, it might have been my second year. I had a student that brought me a poem about this subject matter, which led me in graduate school to do research on the impact of GIs in Britain. And guys, as you know, we have military bases all over the United States. Yes? Or all over the U.S. and all over the world. Get it later. Now, I spent part of my youth growing up in Pensacola, Florida, which is a Navy town. Okay? They have a naval air station in Pensacola. And so some of my friends, their dads were Navy. Okay? One of my best friends, Billy Selby, his father was in the Navy, and he was stationed all over the world. At one point, he was stationed in the Philippines. Billy Selby's mother is from the Philippines. Okay, as were several acquaintances of his mom from the Philippines. So there were a lot of Navy guys that married Filipino women. All right, and this has happened in other places as well, even in the Middle East. Okay, if you're working at a checkpoint for 12 months in Iraq, and this lady walks by every day and strike up a conversation, how you doing? One thing leads to another, and love happens. Now, our government really discouraged this in the Middle East because of the religious differences and so forth, but be that as it may, love cannot be contained. And so, guys, this is an interesting situation with so many GIs. And so the name of this poem is called The British Girl's Lament. Lament. That's one of your vocab words from English class.
I don't remember this.
Yes, it is. Lament. What does that mean? To mourn or sorrow. Okay, a British girl's sorrow or mourning. Okay, and this is dealing with the American GI. Okay, now I'm going to read you this poem. Okay, it's kind of cute. There is one bad word in it. Okay, that I don't like to say, but it's a poem, so it rhymes. You know, so you got to use that term. And then the Hun is, they're referring to the Germans. Okay, now most of these 2 million GIs in Britain have not seen combat. Some of them have fought in North Africa, maybe in Italy, but most of them are still green. The only thing they've done is cross the Atlantic. Okay, and so what else? There's reference to a woman named Hedy Lamarr. If you go back to the 1940s, beautiful actress, singer from that age, Hedy Lamarr. So you know who that is. And they refer to us as Yankees. Yes, Yanks. All right. So you ready? All right. Dear old England's not the same. We dreaded the invasion. Well, it came. But no, it's not the beastly Hun. It's the goddamn Yankee armies come. You see them in the train and bus. There isn't room for lots of us. We walk to let them have our seats, then get run over by their jeeps. They moan about our lukewarm beer, think beer's like water over here, but after drinking one or more, you'll find them stretched out on the floor. You should see them try to dance. They find a partner, start to prance. When you're half dead, they stop and smile and say, how about that, honey child? With admiration, see them try to jitterbug. They twist and turn and pull and tug. It's enough to make red Indians jealous, yet they are civilized, or so they tell us. With admiration, we would stare at the ribbons that they wear and think of deeds so bold and daring that won the ribbons they are wearing. Alas, they haven't fought the Hun. No war battles have they won. Those pretty ribbons just denotes they've crossed the sea, brave men in boats. We speak to them, they just look hazy. We think they're daft. They think we're crazy. Yet they are our allies, we must be nice. They love us so, but cats like mice. They laugh at us for drinking tea, yet a funnier sight you'll never see than a Yank chewing gum with a dumb-looking face. He'll raise a laugh most any place. They tell you you've teeth like pearls. They love your hair, the way it curls. Your eyes condemn the brightest star. Your competition for Hedy Lamarr. You are their life, their love, their all, and for no other would they fall. They love you, dear, till death do part, and if you leave, you'll break their heart. And then they leave you broken-hearted. The camp is moved, your love departed. You wait for mail that doesn't come, and then you realize you're awfully dumb. In a different town, in a different place, to a different girl with a different face. I love you, darling. Please be mine. Same old Yank, same old line. British Girls Lament. Kind of cute. Yeah? All right. So, all right. So we've got the force there. They're training and so forth. Okay. Now at 9:30 the night before, remember we have to go at low tide. The weather was bad over southern England in the English Channel, and trying to get hundreds of thousands of men on boats and get them across the channel in rough seas is bad. So they're all waiting on Colonel Stagg, who's a meteorologist. You got Eisenhower, Monty, General Marshall, all in a room. And they're trying to figure out whether they're going to go or not because of the weather. Colonel Stagg at 9:30 says it looks like there's going to be a lull in the weather, that we should be able to make a safe crossing. And so they give the word to go. That's when the paratroopers start loading on the planes, heading in for their nighttime landings. The British gliders will be sent over and so forth. Okay. So at 5:30 a.m., the Navy opens up, just bombing the you-know-what out of the beach. Okay, trying to take out enemy positions, artillery, machine gun nests, and so forth. In the end, that bombing didn't have as big of an impact that we wanted. At 6:30 a.m., the first troops land, the first wave. The surprise did work. Now, as you guys saw in the movie Saving Private Ryan, Omaha Beach became very bogged down, and it wouldn't be until about 11 o'clock that morning that they were able to get through that seawall and up the beach and take out the German positions. Okay. Now, that surprise, remember, we're trying to fool them with Operation Fortitude. Hitler was not sleeping well. The Russians had turned the tide on the Eastern Front and were now pushing the Germans back towards Germany. And so Hitler was taking sleeping pills just to sleep. Okay. His aide-de-camp is General Jodl. And guys, when the sun came up and the Germans on the beach at Normandy looked out there into the channel, there were literally 5,000 ships out there. Okay, so they're like screaming, trying to say, hey, the invasion has started here. General Jodl would not wake up Hitler because he still thought the invasion was coming at Dover. Okay, so that delay of a couple of hours of getting the reinforcements to go in allowed us to establish a safe beachhead. Okay, and then eventually we would break out. Okay, now this would take time. So D+7, we've landed 326,000 men, 50,000 vehicles, and 100,000 tons of supplies. Okay, and then I mentioned this movie to you in the background, The Longest Day. Yes? Okay. Why are you guys snickering? Am I repeating myself? Yep. Okay. So this shows, again, the map. Here's Dover, and then this is where we landed, okay? And so we're going to begin to break out. This is D+90 right here. D+90 days. So you can see the fighting was stiff, okay? I mentioned Pont du Hoc a couple of times, okay? And And just a couple pictures of our guys scaling the cliffs with long ladders. You guys know what a treble hook is? How you guys fish? So I got three hooks on one hook. Okay. Well, they built big ones, like this big. Okay. Treble hook this big, and they had like air cannons with rope tied to it, and they shot them up to the top of the cliffs and caught them on the barbed wire and pulled themselves up. These guys, these rangers, suffered a 70% casualty rate scaling those cliffs. When they got to the top, to where that big gun was supposed to be, it had never been installed, right? Told you that. Okay. All right. Just showing some of the breakout. Okay. So we're going to be going across the hedgerows. This is what our troops talked about. Now, you guys know in Kansas, we have, in the 1930s, we built rows of trees, yes, to stop the break of wind. Remember the Dust Bowl, okay? So they put up rows of trees. I didn't know if you didn't know, okay. Well, some of you didn't know that, but yeah, in Kansas, we do this to try and stop the wind from blowing the soil away, okay? In France, this is what the countryside looks like, okay? Rows, you guys grew up watching that cartoon movie Over the Hedge. Okay, so I mean, these things are 6 feet tall, 8 feet tall, very thick. If you're a paratrooper and you're landing at night into this, you have no idea what's on the other side of the hedge. You know what I mean? So our paratroopers, they actually, I don't know if you guys know this story, they gave them this little child's toy. It's called a cricket. It's a thumb depressor. Push it down, it goes click, and then you release it, goes click. So one click sounds like this, click, click. So one click, all the paratroopers were given these, and if you heard something on the other side of the hedge, you go one click, and you answer that with 2 clicks. So click, click, and then you listen, and you hear click, 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 you know that's an American on the other side of the hedge, okay? Now, in the movie The Longest Day, they showed this. Now, one of the standard issue weapons for the Germans was a bolt action rifle, which to eject a cartridge and put a new one in sounds like this. Click, 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 click. So in the movie, they show this paratrooper do his thumb depressor, click, click, and he hears click, 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 jumps around the side of the hedge, and the German shoots him. Now, I don't know if that actually happened or they just put that in the movie, but that movie tends to be pretty historically accurate, so it may have happened. Okay. So we're going across the hedgerows. Now, guys, the goal is to get to Berlin. We've got 3 million troops. We don't have trucks for 3 million troops. So most of these troops are, in the end, in the long run, going to fight their way and walk across France to get to Germany. Literally walk across France. Okay. Now, to make things a little bit easier, we had tanks. Okay. And this is oftentimes what infantry would do, is they would go alongside the tanks for protection. Okay. And the tanks would try and take out other tanks and the artillery and so forth. Now, if you look at the front of this tank, this has teeth on it. You guys remember the hedgehogs they had on the beaches that they were hiding behind on the video? They broke those apart and welded them on the front of tanks as teeth to get through the hedges. As you can see in this picture, it's got a bunch of brush on it, okay, for the tanks. Kind of an interesting deal. Okay, so here we go. We're going to break out across France. The battle normally lasts basically D plus 9 weeks. Let's see, 7 weeks. Okay, in which we will capture roughly 1,500 square miles. Now I got General Patton on here. You guys remember which army Patton used to have? Yeah, the Big Red One, they call it. Big Red One, the First Army. Okay, had that taken away. he is going to get back an army. He's going to be given the Third Army. Okay? Now, I know Patton was used as a decoy with Operation Fortitude. Okay? But Patton will lead the Third Army. And before they leave, Patton gives a speech to the Third Army, 6th Armored Division. This becomes kind of a famous speech that he gives. Okay, now Patton is old school. You understand? Very old school. And this is stuff that legends are made out. Now, it would be hard-pressed to hear a general today give this speech. Okay, but you never know. Okay, I wasn't in Afghanistan or Iraq. Okay, but you guys want to hear this speech? Are you sure?
Yes.
It's got some dirty words in it. It's okay? That's even better mystery, right? All right, ready?
No.
No? A general talks to his army. Now, I want you to remember that no bastard ever won a war by dying for his country. He won it by making the other poor, dumb bastard die for his country. Men, all this stuff you heard about America not wanting to fight, wanting to stay out of the war is a lot of horse dung. Americans traditionally love to fight. All real Americans love the sting of battle. When you were kids, you all admired the champion marble shooter, the fastest runner, big league ball players, the toughest boxers. Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. America plays to win all the time. I wouldn't give a hoot in hell for a man who lost and laughed about it. That's why Americans have never lost a war and will never lose a war. Because the very thought of losing is hateful to Americans. Now, an army is a team. It lives, eats, sleeps, fights as a team. This individuality stuff is a bunch of crap. The bilious bastards who wrote that stuff about individuality for the Saturday Evening Post don't know anything more about real battle than they do about fornicating. Now, fornicating. Now, we have the finest food and equipment, the best spirit, the best men in the world. You know, my God, I actually pity those poor bastards we're going up against. My God, I do. We're not just going to shoot the bastards, we're going to cut out their living guts and use them to grease the treads of our tanks. We're going to murder those lousy Hun bastards by the bushel. Now, some of you boys, I know, are wondering whether or not you'll chicken out under fire. Don't worry about it. I can assure you, you will all do your duty. The Nazis are the enemy. Wade into them. Spill their blood. Shoot them in the belly. And when you put your hand into a bunch of goo that a moment before was your best friend's face, you'll know what to do. Now, there's another thing I want you to remember. I don't want to get any messages saying that we're holding our position. We're not holding on to anything. We'll let the Hun do that. We're advancing constantly. We're not interested in holding on to anything except the enemy. We're going to hold on to him by the nose, and we're going to kick him in the ass. We're going to kick the hell out of him all the time, and we're going to go through him like crap through a goose. Now, there's one thing you men will be able to say when you get back home, and you may thank God for it. 30 years from now, when you're sitting around your fireside with your grandson on your knee, and he asks you, what did you do in the Great World War II? You won't have to say, well, I shoveled shit in Louisiana. All right, now, you sons of bitches, you know how I feel. I'd be proud to lead you wonderful guys into battle anytime, anywhere. That's all. Dismissed. Pat is going to lead the Third Army through the German lines, and he will be the one that will liberate Paris. Okay? This is one of the most famous pictures of World War II, of American troops marching in formation down the Champs-Élysées through the Arc de Triomphe. Okay? It was a joyous occasion. it was a party. The French had been under German occupation for 4 years, more than 4 years, okay? And they were free. The wine was flowing. Now, in one of the videos, I showed you a journalist that was with the Marines at Guadalcanal, and also in Italy, Tregascus is his name. But one of the most famous wartime correspondents in World War II was a guy named Ernie Pyle. He wrote a book about it, his experiences. And Ernie Pyle said in the liberation of France, or of Paris, this is kind of racy, he said, if you were an American GI when we liberated Paris and you didn't get laid, there was something wrong with you. Okay? It was a party. Okay? And the French were excited. Now our work was we still had a lot of work to do. Okay? So within 6 weeks of Paris being liberated, all of France is cleared of Germans. Okay? So you're looking at August, September, by the middle of October, the Germans are out. Okay, now they've been in France for 4 years, so as they pull out, they're burning documents, they're getting what they can out of the country and so forth. And in that battle for France, the Germans lost more than 500,000 men and massive amounts of military machinery. Okay, so the Germans are in trouble. Okay, and Hitler knows it. Okay, so on the Eastern Front, the Russians are closing in. Okay, so by September, we have 3 million troops in France. Okay, and the Russians have reached the border of Germany on the east. The German fortifications, now you might have forgotten the French fortifications on their side called the Maginot Line. Okay, this is called the Siegfried Line. And I think I talked to you guys about dragon's teeth. This is a good picture with dragon's teeth. So is this over here, part of the Siegfried Line. This is a big gate with huge I-beams that the Germans would try and defend. Okay, this picture here, you got Monty, Churchill, that's Patton. I'm not sure who that guy is. Okay, that's at the border with Germany. Now the Russians have taken Romania and Belgrade. Where's Belgrade? Serbia. Okay, so in the south, they've come in. Okay, they've also, now the Germans will dig in at Budapest, which is where? Hungary, okay? And they have also worked their way through Poland, the Germans have. Okay, so really you're seeing this pincer on Hitler, okay, from both sides. Hitler's got enough left to make one major assault, okay? And what Hitler's looking at by the end of 44 is trying to set up a situation where he can get a peace deal, where he can stay in power, where we don't actually invade Germany. So what he's going to try and do is create one big offensive, capture as many Allied troops as possible, and sue for peace. Try and get a peace agreement, okay? Now, he could attack on the Eastern Front and try and capture Russian troops, or on the Western Front and try and capture American troops. Now, I will tell you this, guys. When the Germans went out into Russia, they showed no mercy towards the Russian people. The Germans were brutal. And so as the Russians come back, they will show no mercy towards the Germans. They're all Nazis. They're all targets. They're all fair game. Men, women, children, it doesn't matter. Okay? Most of these 3 million troops on the Western Front are still green. They haven't seen a lot of combat. So Hitler is going to make that decision for one last desperate bid on the Western Front. But before we get there, guys, it's November of 1944, and we got to go back across the pond for a presidential election. Roosevelt running for an unprecedented 4th term. will run against the Republican Thomas Dewey. Now, poor Thomas Dewey, they made fun of him. They said he looked like the little figurine, the groomsman on a wedding cake.
I thought he looked like Mr. Bean.
Or the Monopoly guy.
No, he looks like Mr. Bean.
Man. Now, you can see the states, the Republican one, and I don't know why it's in blue, okay? Republican won the blue states here, okay? And Dewey will run again. It's an electoral landslide, popular vote about 3 million difference. Okay, so yeah, Roosevelt's still popular, but it's not overwhelming, okay? And guys, changing horses in the middle of a race like this is not something generally the U.S. population wanted to do, okay? Now, Roosevelt is going to add Harry S. Truman to the ticket. His first vice president was John Garner from Texas, right? His second was Henry A. Wallace, Secretary of Agriculture. Wallace was his second vice president for 2 terms. Now, why not Wallace? Wallace is still alive and well, yeah. Yeah, he was the communist. And the Democratic National Committee, the Democratic Party, told Roosevelt, they knew Roosevelt wasn't well. Here, I'll show you a picture. Roosevelt is not well. This is Inauguration Day, 1945, January 20th. Within 4 months, he'll be dead. So the Democratic National Committee told Roosevelt, you need to drop Wallace. Because if you die, sorry, Mr. President, it's likely, he's going to become president, and we're not going to have that. Okay, so he adds a first-term senator from Missouri, Independence, Missouri, Harry S. Truman. Now, a little presidential trivia here. As you guys know, Truman will go on to become president, yes? There's no dots or period after the S, right? Because that's his middle name, S. As the story goes, his mother and some of you guys, your middle name, a family name? So both mom and dad of Harry had a middle name they wanted to name from their families, and they both started with S. So rather than having a fight over it, they just named him S. Okay. Now, Truman doesn't have a lot of experience. He is, like I said, a 1-term senator, and he did serve in World War I. Truman did. Okay, but people are like, Harry, who? Harry, who? Who's Truman? Like, these two have only met twice. They don't really know each other. Okay, but Roosevelt picks Truman. And guys, within 4 months, the whole weight of this war is going to fall on Harry Truman. Now, guys, new polling numbers for Joe Biden are out this week, right? You seen these? Approval rating? Okay, CBS has a poll out with a 41% approval rating for President Biden. When Harry Truman left office, he had the lowest approval rating of any president in the modern era. Now, he's a Democrat, and as somebody that teaches 20th century American history, I don't know, man. I thought Truman did a good job. I mean, with what was cast upon him during the war and then after the war with the Cold War, I felt like Truman did a good job, personally. And if you look at his civil rights record, he's really, in my opinion, the first civil rights president besides, of course, Lincoln. Yeah.
What was his?
It was like 36%. It was bad. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Roosevelt, Truman, this is John Foster Dulles. I'll be talking about him later. Yeah.
Question. Was Wallace his vice president for 2 terms?
Yes.
The middle 2?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, so now what's the main reason why Biden's numbers are so low? I mean, it started with Afghanistan, but really what's the reason? Yeah, the economy, inflation, gas prices, that sort of thing, okay? So when the economy does bad, I mean, that's what really does presidents in. When the economy's good, you can kind of get away with whatever you want. Ask Bill Clinton. Right? Ask Ronald Reagan. I mean, same thing. They called Ronald Reagan the Teflon president. I don't know if you know what Teflon is. It's like non-stick. It just rolls right off you. Okay. Yeah. Nixon, the Watergate scandal really wasn't, I mean, it really was not a huge deal. Nobody died. You know what I mean? But if the economy would have been good, people would have just said, yeah, I know that was corrupt, but he shouldn't have to resign. You know what I mean? It's like, so that's what does presidents in a lot is the economy. Okay. So anyhow, yeah, this is going to be the guy we'll be talking about in a few slides. Okay. All right. So back to what I was talking about. This becomes known as the Battle of the Bulge. Okay. Now I'll show you why it looks like why it's called the Battle of the Bulge. Now, don't panic. I'll put that back up. The Germans are going to mass about 600,000 troops, over 600 tanks, thousands of artillery pieces, okay? And they're going to pick a point in our lines. This is okay, we're in Belgium here, Luxembourg down here. This is the Ardennes forest that we talked about, all right? It's heavily dense forest, and it's winter. Look at the date. Well, you don't have a date. It's December. What's the date? You got that much, December 16th, okay? And it will last into January. So at this mass of point, okay, they are going to have great success. This is 60 miles. So we'll create a bulge in our line 60 miles deep, which that's where the name of the battle comes from, okay? Now, if you look at this map, you'll notice the U.S. First Army under Hodges is here. U.S. Third Army's in the south under Patton here. As soon as Patton receives word of this attack, he will put the Third Army on a forced march of close to 72 hours straight to try and get there to save the day. Yeah.
There's a second.
There isn't one. Yeah. Okay. Don't ask me these questions I can't answer. I'll have to look that up. Okay. All right. Now, the goal for the Germans here is to break through, okay, and then circle around and capture as many Americans as possible. Okay. But because Patton and Hodges from the north and the south will come in and crush this. Now, the weather favors the Germans. We have air superiority over you at this point. Okay, we control the skies. But guys, it's a freaking snowstorm for weeks. Okay, and so there's cloud cover. And when there's cloud cover, you can't see German tanks on the ground. Okay, you can't, from the air, you really struggle to drop in supplies to your troops. You don't know where they are. Okay, so this foul weather is going to give the advantage. Hey guys, it's freaking cold. Thank you. Tomorrow, when we have time, tomorrow I'm going to show you some video from World War II in HD, and they follow a soldier named Rocky Blunt. Okay, he's a jazz drummer from Massachusetts. Okay, and he's in the Battle of the Bulge. Okay, and they tell his story of what happens to him. Okay. Guys, it's winter, and most of our troops, many of our troops do not have the clothes that they need. Okay, so people are going to freeze to death in this. But really, it's the German artillery that's going to do the most damage. Now, I want to talk about this city right here called Bastion. You can see there's a lot of roads coming in and out of Bastion. It's a central hub. It's a city, okay? And the 101st Airborne, the same guys that dropped in on D-Day behind enemy lines, those guys, if you ever watched the movie or miniseries called Band of Brothers, they follow around the 101st Airborne, okay? Now, these guys are going to be completely surrounded. They are not going to retreat, and they are under the command of General McCulloch. Now, McCulloch uses a brilliant military tactic here called mass of force, because if the Germans knew how many troops we had in Bastion, they would have just overrun us. But they didn't because of this mass of force. So when they attack here, McCulloch sent everything he had to that spot where the Germans were attacking to give them the indication that there were more Americans there than they thought. Okay, and when they attacked in the rear, massive force to that spot. Okay, eventually, as we are surrounded there, the Germans will send a courier, a message to General McCulloch in Bastion, and it says, "You are completely surrounded. You need to surrender." McCulloch looks at this and goes, nuts. And he's like, "Well, we're not surrendering." He's talking to his, his officers and stuff. And he goes, "What do you think I should say on that? What should my reply be?" And one guy says, "Well, just write what you just said, nuts." And so he wrote nuts on that and gave it back to the Germans. And they attacked again. Okay? These guys become known as the battling bastards of Bastion. Okay? And they survive. I mean, they survive. They hold that town. And eventually, when the sky's clear enough, they're able to drop supplies in to help these guys. And eventually, Pat will get there and relieve them. Okay, so, I mean, this is a major battle. This is the largest battle of the entire war for the United States. We have over 500 tanks, over 500,000 men are involved in this. Okay, and about 55,000 British will be involved in this. Okay, and as I said, 600,000 Germans. So I'll show you some video on that tomorrow. But here's the notes so you can get those down. Okay. It's really a tough slog. We're going to have 19,000 killed in action in this battle. Okay. And just like a lot of this, guys, you can make a long story short. In part of this battle, there was a battle called the Battle of the Herkin Forest. Any guys heard of this? It's awful. Okay, so one of our generals decided to go through this forest to attack the Germans. And this is extremely dense. He could have gone around the forest, but he chose to go through it. And the German 88 millimeter flat guns just rained havoc on our guy. Okay, we had over 80,000 casualties in this battle. Most of them from shrapnel. Okay, a lot of them to the cold weather. Okay, it was an awful battle, but we're gonna win. Okay, we're gonna win this battle. And the Germans, by this point, they're cashed in. I mean, they cannot put up a defense. And so our focus over the next couple of days will be, what happens at the end of the war here? Because the implications that at the end of the war here are going to last over 40 years. In fact, we're still feeling the impact of our decisions at the end of this war today. And tens of millions of Europeans will be impacted by the decisions of Eisenhower and Churchill and Stalin, and how they decide to end this conflict. Okay. The Germans will lose about 120,000 men in the Battle of the Bulge. This is some pretty good pictures that show you the density of the forest and the weather in this battle. And the video will do an even better job of that tomorrow. Guys, I am thinking I'm going to be able to finish this up by Wednesday. So we'll take the test Friday. I want to get it done before the break because it's a lot of information. Do you have a lot on Friday?
Yes, on Thursday. Thursday and Friday.
Thursday you got Chem.
I have AP Bio. Thursday and Friday. Thursday and Friday.
Okay, so it's a 2-day test. What else?
English paper due.
Research, yeah.
That's just a quiz.
Research paper for who?
Sorry.
You're just a 3-day weekend.
Well, I pushed my research paper back 2 days for my government class.
That's nice. Very kind of you.
Yeah, father's not
I
gonna
thought
do
the
that.
father's not gonna do that.
Are you guys turning it in on Turnitin? So,
Yeah,
No.
he already said that this morning.
He
He was like,
doesn't budge.
just get it done. I was like, okay.
that was today?
So man, I went to his office. I was like, hey, I have like a lot due on Friday. Can I have an extension? Like, I'll get it done on Saturday. I just have a lot on Friday.
Yeah.
He was like, just get it done this week. And I was like,
Well, you need more people backing up on that.
I will go it all 6 hours.
I'll just
I'll
act
ask
like I don't,
two
well,
points.
actually, I can't, 'cause I'm getting my paper today. So.
Just don't give it until
I
Friday.
can't, no, I can't.
I have a question.
This
Hi.
one's is 19,000.
So, you know, one of my favorite TV shows is MASH. And that's the Korean war.
Yes, ma'am.
Did they have MASH units during World War I?
Yes, ma'am.
Really?
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
I don't know if they called it MASH. But yes, they had military, pop up military, hospitals and so forth.
Did they send civilian nurses and doctors just like the Korean
Oh,
War?
yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Now, they might have been classified under the military, but I don't know if they had to go through like basic training and stuff
Right.
like that.
Right.
They get,
Do you like MASH? Do you like
I've watched a lot of it. My dad being Korean War vet. A couple of the actors in that, as human beings, they're kind of Alan Alda, I think his name is. I forget the other guy's name. Pretty outspoken. And once those guys started,
Right.
he's like, yeah.
Why, instead of Saturday morning cartoons, we watch.
They don't.
Yeah, this test, you guys did good on the last one. It's just, read over your notes, this week. It's not like super hard. Yes, sir.
For
Yeah.
this? Oh, I got it. Can you give us the study guide like tomorrow?
Is it on,
And then I forgot to do.
should be on camera. Yes. Sure. Yeah.
When are we gonna go over our lessons? Because I kind of want to see how
Oh,
badly I missed.
yeah.
So,
How much time do we have?
we have 5 minutes.
We can do it now.
No.
I want to see how badly if you made fun of me for putting